Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're talking about a few reasons why your house looks cheap. I know no one ever wants to be called cheap. We don't want to look cheap and tacky, so how do we fix it? Well, we're going to talk about all of that in today's video, so let's get right into it. So before I jump into it, I want to say today's video is not about, oh, if you don't have money, you're a lost cause. I do not feel that way. Regardless of how much money you have, you deserve a beautiful home, and in today's video, I'm going to give you the tools and tricks to make any home, regardless of your budget, look elevated. Even if you have $1 million, today's video is for you, and if you only have $300 for your room makeover, today's video is still applicable to you because I promise you can apply all of these things with a very modest budget. So let's get started. The first thing that does look pretty cheap is when you have your curtains up on the wall, but they're not adequately full. I see people all the time, they'll put the curtains up and they'll only put one panel on each side. Sometimes that's all the window needs, that's all the room can accommodate, but other times it just looks kind of sparse. I've even seen people put one panel on an entire window the size of the ones that I have in my house. And I'm kind of like, what's going on here? It just looks incomplete and it doesn't actually do anything, right? So if you put one panel up or you don't put enough panels up, normally it's because you're just using the curtains to kind of shelter you from the sunlight. Let's actually put more curtains up, right? So that we can actually filter out that sunlight and get the privacy and the light dimming that we actually want. When we just put that one curtain up, we're not actually fulfilling any of our needs. It looks cheap and we aren't getting our desired goal. So I actually do want you to put up more panels if you can do that, if your budget does allow that. So what I'm basically saying is when you have a window, I want there to at least be one panel on either side. I don't just want there to be one singular panel. It just looks kind of, bland. It's not full. It's not really adding the decoration. Of course, curtains do have practical purposes, but curtains also do exist for design purposes. Curtains are a form of decor. So if you are not bolstering the decor, you're losing so very much. So if you have a window, I want you to at least have one panel on either side. If the bar can sustain that, if your wall can sustain the weight, let's put two panels on either side. Let's make it look really nice and full. And no, if you saw my first This Looks Cheap video, I don't want those panels to be right up on the ends of the window. I want you to extend the window as much as possible. We need to hang those curtains very high and we want them to go all the way to the floor unless you have a space heater. So many people said that to me last time. They're like, I have a space heater, I have a radiator. Of course I'm not talking to you. Safety comes first. But if your space does allow for that, have your curtains go down to the floor and go as up close to the ceiling as possible. I do not want that rod touching that ceiling though, because that looks super tacky. That looks super tacky. But we do want our curtains as close to the ceiling as possible because it's going to make our space look really nice and grand, and that way not only did we just get something that's filtering that light and giving us that privacy, but we're also getting a floor length amount of decor. There's nothing better than that. If you actually invest in getting full curtains, and it doesn't have to be expensive, go to IKEA, you can get really nice full curtains for like $25 for a pack, so it's not really a money thing. You can go and get this super affordably, but if you're doing that, you actually are going to end up saving money because then you don't have to spend as much money on wall decor and things like that. The next reason why your house looks cheap is that your furniture doesn't have a backing on it. So let me give you a little bit of backstory. If you're buying furniture from IKEA, Walmart, Target, if you're buying affordable furniture in general, there is nothing wrong with that. Hear me when I say that, hear me when I say it again. But something that they do to kind of skimp on you so that they don't have to spend as much money with the manufacturing is they actually don't put backings on furniture. So you'll have a desk and it's a beautiful desk. It does everything you need it to do. It has the drawers, it's really working for you. But if you rotate that desk a little bit, all you see is corkboard. Okay, maybe if they're trying to make it into like a corkboard desk, like hybrid, like like a small space hack, that's great, but that's not what they're doing. They're just leaving the desk unfinished, and it leaves you so limited into how you can position your furniture. And the way you position your furniture really has a huge bearing on how your interior design comes across. So I do want you to have options. So what I want you to start doing is, one, either buy furniture that does have a backing on it or put backings on your own furniture. You can buy the MDF, the corkboard, the fiberboard. You can buy all of that on Amazon. You can even buy it from IKEA when you are there. Get that board and finish your furniture, make it look complete, make it so that you can rotate anything in any direction and keep it looking good. If again, you don't know what I'm talking about, let's talk about a Billy bookcase. Let's talk about the Billy bookcase because everyone loves a Billy bookcase, right? It's nice, it gives you all the storage, there are all these different combinations, but when you look at the back of that, again, it looks like you're in a classroom, right? It looks like you're gonna put your push pins in there and put your notes on there. It's really nice, but it's not doing anything for the design. Now, the Billy bookcase, I have no idea why you would have the back facing your living room, but to each their own. I'm not your designer, so if that's what you want to do, you can do it. But nobody wants to look at the back of that. We want it to look consistent with the front of that bookcase, right? Because elevated furniture, luxury furniture, it's almost always finished. Now, I've had a few luxury pieces and not give me finished furniture, and I've definitely had something to say, and it's gone back to the store, but you want it to look complete, right? If you have the beautiful black veneer on the front, I want to have that on the back as well, because it also makes it easier if you're doing some type of hack. You want everything to look really nice and seamless. You gotta make sure you can't see any of that corkboard or fiberboard or whatever, because you wanna be able to keep your options open. I have a client right now. We got this really fantastic side table off of Wayfair. Yes, we got it off of Wayfair because it's affordable. It's made from the same manufacturers as those luxury brands, plus it's available. And right now we're all struggling to get furniture in a timely manner. So we got this, there's no backing on it. So what we're doing is we ordered some corkboard off of Amazon, the fiberboard that you can get for the furniture, and we're gonna stain it to match the front of it. And then we're gonna be good to go. You don't have to spend more money on more expensive furniture, because more expensive furniture doesn't mean it's not going to look cheap. If it's unfinished, it's unfinished, right? We're just going to do a little bit of a hack to elevate this piece so that the house looks really nice and seamless, because this side table is actually in the living room. It is an open concept. So sure, if you're looking at, that side table from the television, it looks amazing. It looks fantastic. But if you rotate yourself, if you go to the other side of the room, you're like, what's kind of going on here, right? So that's a really easy way to fix it. Again, you don't have to spend more money and live outside of your means to stop looking cheap. We just have to make this really, really minor switch. Now, this one really grinds my gears because it seems like it's a pricing thing, but it's not. So another thing that really looks cheap is when people have pillows that are too small on their sofas, and just pillows too small in general. So there are kind of rules for scale, right? Because scale is super important in interior design. And sometimes when you're getting something bigger, it costs more money. Well, if you're getting really affordable throw pillows, which you should be, if you're getting them on Amazon, if you're getting them from IKEA, if you're getting them from the sources that I'm telling you to get them from because they're affordable and high quality, the price difference, it's a few cents, right? It's a 15-cent increase. It's a 20-cent increase. It's not a $50 increase, a $75 increase like at other places. So what I see happen all the time is someone will get a throw pillow that's really small. It's 18 by 18, and they put it on their 8-foot sofa, and they're like, why didn't this make it look good? And I'm like, well, because I can't see it. I can't see it because it's so small. It's smaller than everything else. It's smaller than you. I can't even see the pillow if you're sitting on the sofa, right? So we just got to make sure that the scale is correct. So how do we fix this? Well, we get those affordable pillows from other places so that when the price does go up, because maybe the pillow covers are more expensive or stuff like that, we haven't had to, hike the entire price up because we got those pillow inserts from a really, really affordable place, right? We want to make sure that things are scaled correctly. When you're sitting on your sofa, you want one bigger pillow. Then you want a pillow that's a little bit smaller. Then you probably want a lumbar pillow or another pillow that's a new shape that is your accent pillow, right? We want to layer different sizes because there's just dimension there so that we can see everything. Just think, if everything is the exact same size and you put them right in front of one another, you can't see the ones behind it. So you've wasted money and it's not really bolstering your design style, right? So we want things that are scaled correctly, because when things are scaled correctly, they just look better and it looks cheap because it looks like you didn't want to pay for something that was the right size. That's okay. I also didn't want to pay for something that was the right size. So we found a hack to kind of ameliorate that. Getting scale right is so very important. I'm telling you, you can have $1 million budget, and if your scale is wrong, it still looks cheap, right? But you can be working with a really teeny tiny budget for a room. Maybe you're working with a $300 budget for an entire room. If you get that scale correctly, your house is going to look so elevated, so high end. It's about how you do things, not what you do them with always. I know someone's going to be mad about that in the comment. You get what you pay for sometimes, but also creativity is the most powerful thing on the planet. The next thing that is making your house look cheap is that you have mismatched nightstands. Again, if you're living within your means and that's all you can afford, keep those mismatched nightstands. I am team mismatched nightstands. But if you can afford something else, if you are looking to update your house, let's get nightstands that match one another. So again, with this grand millennial trend, with vintage being in, mismatch is in. It is trendy, right? It's something that we're doing right now. If you're actually being sustainable, of course I support you. But the mismatch vibe, it's really hard to make them complement one another because they're mismatched. Of course, if you can get them in the exact same color and the exact same height, it looks good. But if one of your nightstands is 3 feet tall and the other one is 12 inches tall, it's really just not working for me. You know, it's just a little bit confusing. How are you gonna drink your drink? You gotta bend over, you know, you gotta do a somersault to get your drink. And then the other thing, you gotta get on a ladder to get your drink. It just doesn't make any sense. We want there to be some symmetry in a space. Symmetry is good. Even if you're not into really crisp, clean, formal interior design, we still need to have some type of symmetry. So please stop getting mismatched nightstands. In terms of practicality, it just doesn't work very well. And it's really hard to make your space flow. I think that your bedroom should really be your sanctuary, right? That's where you sleep, and there's nothing more important than rest. So that's the space we want it to be spa-like. We want it to be really well curated. So if you're gonna do mismatch, I just wouldn't encourage you to do it in your bedroom. And it also just looks like you didn't want to buy 2 of the same thing, right? So why not? I know maybe one was expensive and the other one wasn't expensive. If you can't afford nightstands that perfectly match one another, what I say, let's upcycle them, right? Let's get really affordable nightstands from somewhere and we can upcycle them. We can put trim on them. We can put decals on them. We can paint them. We can put new hardware on them and make them look elevated instead of buying one thing that's really expensive and one thing that's cheap and trying to make it work. That one expensive thing doesn't cancel out the cheapness of the other one. So if we can just make them complement one another, I promise you it's going to look so much better. The next reason why your house may look a little bit cheap is that your furniture is pilling. So if you don't know what that means, let's move over to fashion. You're like, oh, welcome to Kiva's fashion channel, woohoo. No, but basically what pilling means is you're just getting the fibers of your clothing. It's kind of forming little beads, right? It's forming little pills, and it sits on top of your clothing or your furniture or something like that, and it adds another layer of like scraggliness, another layer of scraggle, if you will. That is the adjective of the day, scraggle. And basically, it just doesn't look good. And the best way to think about this is with your clothing. We've all seen pilling clothing. You can't see the texture as well. You can't see the pattern as well. It just doesn't look good. I know my grandma, she used to be like, you have pilling on your polo. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, what are you talking about, ma'am? But now I actually do have a great appreciation for it. The main reason why, though, I want you to get rid of that pilling is not because I don't really like the way pilling inherently looks. It's because pilling happens with different colored fabric, right? So I have a white sofa. Many of you have white sofas too, and I wear a lot of black. I wear a lot of nude. I pretty much wear a lot of colors that aren't white. So all of the black from my clothing, it ends up sitting in like a little ball on top of my furniture. It just does not look good. It doesn't look good. You cannot convince me otherwise. This is the one I'm most confident about in today's video. It doesn't look good. But what do we do about that? Don't buy a new sofa. That's expensive. I don't want you to throw out your furniture, right? This is today's video. Stop listening to people telling you to throw away all your stuff unless they're gonna pay for it. No, what I want you to do instead is I want you to get a pill shaver. It is this handy dandy little device. Here is some pilling from my very own bed. I have an all white bed. I thought my bed was clean. It was not. Look at that. It just gets all of that little dust and debris off of your surfaces, and it's really easy. You just flick the switch and you kind of rub it on there. It's not going to cut you. You can make your kids do it. You can make your boyfriend do it. I don't care who does it. It's really nice and easy, and it's really going to elevate your space, and it's going to stop your furniture from looking aged. Again, aged furniture is in right now. That's fine, but if you're not into that vibe, de-pill your furniture. Your space is going to look so much more elevated, and your stuff is not going to look cheap, even if it is cheap. The next thing that is making your house look cheap is you're getting your rug size wrong. So again, if you've been here for a while, you might have seen my very first This Looks Cheap video. Go watch it. I'll link it right here. But in that video, I just talked about incorrect rug size in general. But today, I really want to narrow in on your rug being too big for a space. Now, I've seen this happen all the time because we want instant gratification, especially now with the pandemic. Things are taking forever. They're like 66 weeks. I don't even know where I'm gonna live in 66 weeks. I don't wanna wait that long for a rug. But people are buying things that are way too big. I see a rug going up the baseboards. I see a rug touching the baseboards. I see a rug in your living room touching the end of your dining chair. That rug is way too big. The purpose of a rug is to frame out your space. If you're putting a rug in a room and you have hardwood floors, you spend a lot of money on those hardwood floors. You spend a lot of money on that luxury laminate. Let's let it, shine. Let's let whatever you have on your floor shine. If we have a rug entirely covering it up, that doesn't look good, right? Because we're not having that contrast there. Because think about this. We put a rug on our floors to create some contrast, to create some dimension. That's why even when we have wall-to-wall carpets, we put another rug on top sometimes to create that. So if you get a rug that's the exact same type of the room, you haven't actually fixed that problem, right? So we really need an accent rug that is big enough for the space to frame it out, but doesn't take up the entire floor. So when you're buying those rugs that are too big because you're just buying the one that you got off the cuff, or it was just the one that came the fastest, it's making your space look small, and therefore it's making your space actually look cheaper. When you have your furniture going up the walls and stuff like that, you're like, ugh, this furniture is not fitting in the space. What's kind of going on here? It makes the space really feel really small and cramped, right? Because literally the rug is bending up and forcing you in on the space. It's closing you in. It's making the space feel smaller, and therefore it just doesn't look as sophisticated. It doesn't look as luxe, because things that are smaller don't look as luxe. That's just kind of the way that it goes. So to prevent yourself from having this problem in the future, of course, I want you to space plan. If you don't know how to space plan, I actually have a post on it all up on my blog. I'll link it right here, but I give you all the tools and tricks on how to space plan appropriately. But as a general rule of thumb, I want you to leave at least 8 inches between the rug and your wall. That is a really good rule of thumb. You can leave more, you can leave less, but we want to leave at least 8 inches. And again, we want to make sure we're orienting our rugs correctly. I could do a whole video on just rug placement, but we just want to make sure our rugs aren't touching the wall. Of course, it also doesn't look good when a rug is too small, because then it looks like you didn't want to pay for the rug size up. But we just want to make sure that our rug doesn't make us feel like we're caving in. It's just going to make you feel claustrophobic, and it's going to really, de-elevate the room, and we never ever want to do that. Now, the next thing that looks cheap, and this one just breaks my heart, I'm gonna cry, is that when you have an all IKEA home. So I love IKEA, especially if you're into Scandinavian design. I understand IKEA is great, it's affordable, and honestly, I think it looks pretty good. But when you have all IKEA, it's really, really easy to spot that it's all IKEA. Now, I can spot a mom from a mile away. I can spot a mom from a mile away. I can spot a Billy from a mile away, and don't get me started on those Bestos. I can tell those from a mile away, and most people can too. You don't need to be a designer to be able to tell IKEA. If something is very easily identifiable, that means that everyone knows how much that it costs. So we don't want to get everything from one place, because we don't want anyone to be able to tally up how much our home costs. Now this doesn't just go for when things are affordable. This also goes when things are really expensive, because when I go into a home and they've spent $1 million on stuff, I'm like, why did you do that? Why did you do that? It was unnecessary. We could have gotten it for cheaper. I don't understand. But we don't want anyone to be able to come into our home and kind of tally up how much we paid for things. But if we only have an IKEA budget, please, again, do not live outside your budget, right? We want to be financially responsible in 2021, 2022, and all the years to come. I am wishing you financial prosperity. And the way to do that is to live within your means. So what I want you to do, instead of getting all IKEA, I also want you to go to Walmart and Target and At Home and other affordable stores. I want you to shop at a plethora of affordable stores, not just at one, right? So maybe you'll get a Mom, and then maybe you'll get a cubby bookcase from Walmart, and maybe you'll get something from the Studio McGee collection at Target. We're going to many different affordable places, many different cheap places, and we're making a beautiful cheap space. Instead of one where I'm like, oh, this was definitely $9.99 and this was $15.99. We just don't want it to look too catalog, because when something looks too catalog, it looks too copy paste, and it just doesn't look as luxe. If you're getting things from different stores, not only can you not tally up the price, but you're adding new textures, new shapes, so much visual interest, right? And that is inherently what elevates a space. If we have so many different details, that is at its core what makes a space look luxurious and high-end. So this is something you can do without having to ameliorate your budget at all. So go to different stores, please. It's really gonna make a huge difference. Now, if you only have an IKEA nearby, you can't get to the Walmart, you can't get to the Target, you can't get to another affordable store, then what I need you to do, if you do have to shop all IKEA, we want to mix and match the collections, right? If you have a mom bed, don't get the mom nightstand, maybe get a different nightstand, right? Maybe get some bedding from somewhere else, right? If you can order that online, don't get the IKEA bedding. Maybe we will paint it, maybe we'll sand it, maybe we'll add some wallpaper. We're going to definitely style that furniture though, right? Because when we don't style the furniture, it does look cheap, right? Because we can just kind of see what it is at its core. It's the cork board, right? But if we style that cork board, we add some lighting, we add some pizzazz, it looks fantastic. Let me give you a perfect example of this. The mom bed from IKEA. Everyone knows what that looks like. And they sell beds that look just like the mom beds at every single luxury store I know. When I look in my interior design trade things, I see these beds, right? They look identical. The only difference, they added some LED lights to the back, right? They added a little touch of elegance, right? Something that's useful, something that people really value. They added that to the back of the bed. And people are like, whoa, now it's suddenly worth $5,000. No, ma'am, it's still a $300 bed, but now you're paying $5,000 for it. But we want to add those little pops of utility, right? So if you got to get the mom bed, go downstairs in IKEA and get a long LED light strip and have your bed be backlit. That's going to elevate it so much, and it's going to look so different and so sophisticated as opposed to what it looks like originally. Those are just a few hacks you can use to take your more affordable furniture and really, really elevate it. The next thing that really does often look cheap is overstyling a space. So what does that mean? Overstyling a space means you're putting too much stuff in there. And overstyling often happens when we don't do any space planning, we don't really have an idea of scale, or we kind of get carried away at HomeGoods. And we've all been there, right? There's nothing wrong with that. We all do that because we get excited and we experience FOMO. So that's okay. But overstyling can look very cheap because a lot of the time it ends up being things that are not scaled correctly, and a bunch of them, right? You have like 10 tiny little vases, right? Or 100 tiny little this or 100 tiny little that. And it really fills up the space. It makes it look super cluttered, right? And clutter does come across as cheap, right? It looks super cluttered and it doesn't really relay anything to us. It's not guiding my eyes anywhere. It's not really telling a story. So it's just very, very disjointed. And again, having a luxurious looking home means that it is very well curated. So just having these things that have really nothing to do with money at all really do impact one's perception of a space as cheap versus luxurious looking. So someone's probably writing down in the comment, well, what about eclectic design? What about bohemian design? So there are a lot of design styles that are actually inherently cluttered, and there's nothing wrong with that. But notice when you're looking at those design styles, there's still varying things in terms of height, in terms of texture, in terms of color. But if you went to Kirkland's and you got 10 little white ceramic vases that, you know, all say the same thing or all look identical, that's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about overcrowding a space and having some intention behind it. I'm talking about overcrowding a space just with things because they were all affordable, you got a good deal on them, and you said, oh, I'm gonna settle for this, instead of really curating a situation. I'm telling you, I see this in every single video. If you're following the rule of thirds, if you're getting, you know, 3 things for a vignette, that's gonna have so much more power than a bunch of tiny little things. So you might actually end up saving money. Get 1 tall vase, 1 small vase, some books, and like some decorative orb. That actually might be cheaper than getting 10 little mini things that all look the same, right? You actually might spend more money on that, but that's actually the thing that I just told you to do is going to hold so much power. Again, this is another case in point. This video really has nothing to do with how much money you spend. You can accomplish these elevated looks really affordably. It's just knowing what to do to accomplish that. Okay guys, that's it for today's video. Those were a few reasons why your house looks cheap. If you take away anything from today's video, money does not buy style. You can have a really modest budget and implement the things that I'm talking about today, and you can transform your house from being really cheap looking, really basic looking, to something that looks super luxe without spending too much money. There is absolutely nothing better than that, so I hope that you found so much value in today's video. If you liked today's video, please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and check me out on Instagram. And until next time, have a beautiful day.